And it won't be too long, oh yeah, till we going home, oh yeah. They know they doing wrong, oh yeah. We saw that crook, yeah, that look. Was on TV doing it by the book. Saying one thing, now the whole world shook. He didn't get us, cause we not rooks. You gotta kill us, we like the Messiah. People feel us, we speak with fire. Passion, zeal, we still feel. We don't shake hands and we don't do deals. Don't act normal, we know you wanna harm us. You chase comers, now we farmers. The beast been here, but we got armor. See so clear, we do not wonder. Governments with politics. In the bed with Protestants. 501c3s. Take away their confidence. They need man, we need God. Wear that mask, you need your job. We don't bend, so we might starve. We gon' win, cause we got God. Devil in the suit and tie, with that lady by his side. He gon' die, she gon' slide to the front, then it's bye-bye. Devil in the suit and tie, with that lady by his side. He gon' die, she gon' slide to the front, then it's bye-bye. This world is coming to a really, really bad end, and people gon' be running loose, looking for the end, oh yeah. And it won't be too long, oh yeah, till we going home, oh yeah. They know they doing wrong, oh yeah, but Yahweh on the throne, oh yeah. And it won't be too long, oh yeah, till we going home, oh yeah. They know they doing wrong, oh yeah, but Yahweh on the throne, oh yeah. Won't be long till they playing backfire. They sitting all alone like 4 flat tires. They gotta see the throne and feel that fire. You think it ain't real, go ahead, expire. I'm afraid.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, my brothers and sisters, and welcome to another Sabbath Bible study. Happy Sabbath. I hope everybody is doing well, and we're going to get started today. But before we do, we're going to welcome, we got brothers and sisters from all over this morning. We got brothers and sisters from Instagram. Good morning, Instagram. How are y'all doing? Thank you for joining us today. TikTok, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate it. We got YouTube and Facebook. My brothers and sisters, I really appreciate you. And we got Zoom, Be Strong and Courageous Family on Zoom. How are y'all doing this morning? Amen. Amen. Another opportunity to dig in his word, another opportunity to get things right. You know what I'm saying? We living, we upright, we breathing, and we got some things that we can get better in, correct those and fix those blind spots, as we like to call them, right? We, last night as we were preparing for Sabbath shout or for Sabbath on Sabbath shout, we were talking about, and our brother Ace had shared something with us about going into default mode. What is our default mode? And even when we were talking last week in Sabbath Bible study last week about the story of Joseph, like he didn't just cut this switch on where he was just able to overcome and be resilient. That was characters and different attributes he was building up throughout his life and through different things that he was going through. Is that correct, brothers and sisters? So I'll keep it real with you guys. We are approaching one of my favorite times of the year. And I don't know if our athletes are in here, Brother Stedman and Brother H, but it's football season. It's almost football season. And before we get to like the watch the games and enjoy, or what I like to enjoy during football season is the things that we don't get to see. And that's the training. The off-season training, the thing that goes in the background, the things that these athletes have to work on to build up these things that they're going to need and use in real life or game situations, right? Same thing like a military. The military, they train for every single scenario. And they cover all of their bases. So when they get into these real life situations, they're going to revert back to their training. So what is our default mode? What are we training on? How are we training? What are we training for? Because when adversity hits and the rubber meets the road and things start to play out in this land, we are going to revert back to training. We're going to revert back to what you know. So all of the things that are done behind the scenes when the crowd is not watching and cheering and taking pictures and you're not getting the accolades and the commercials are not on and all of these things that these athletes go through. The thing that we don't get to see, the things that are not as enjoyable, is the off-season workouts, the off-season training. And they got these things in sports that they got what they're called involuntary workouts. They're not mandatory. So you got some people that take it serious and they're there every day of training, getting that work in, really, really putting the work in. And some that maybe not take it as serious, or they might not show up for the workout. And as the season and the training begin, you can see who was working in the off season. Everybody follow what I'm saying? We're gonna have to listen in the spirit today. Right? You'll see once people start to come, you'll see what they were doing during their off time. All right, I can make it even more simple and plain. For those of us who work regular jobs and we're not millionaire athletes, you can tell on Monday morning who's been doing what on the weekend when you get to work Monday morning. Who coming there all tired and sluggish and complaining on Monday. Y'all get what I'm saying? What is our default mode? What are we training for? Because brothers and sisters, as we're living in these end times, we're living in terrible, terrible days coming in the future, in the very near future. We're gonna fall back and revert back to our training. And one of my favorite coaches of all time is Bill Belichick, because if you know Bill Belichick, he went over every possible scenario in practice. There wasn't a lot of things that you would surprise him with. So as we get into the word today, and we'll start to understand the more and more we study, the more and the more we seek him, diligently seek him, he'll give us every nugget, every tool that we need to put in our bag, in our training bag, to be prepared for every possible scenario. So I got great news, brothers and sisters. We're not going to bounce around in the Bible a lot today. We're going to focus on one book. And we're going to go to Daniel. And we're going to be in Daniel. And we're going to start at chapter 1, verse 1. And we'll see how far we go. Everybody good with that? Is everybody willing? So let's go to Daniel 1, chapter 1. It'll be helpful if you had some pen and paper today. If you can. If you're working and driving, I understand. You can go back and watch. Daniel 1, verse 1. I'm waiting on you, Sister Sheila. She said, hold on, let me get there. I'm waiting on you, Sister Sheila. I got you. Daniel 1, verse 1. Give me a thumbs up, Sheila, when you get there. Thank you, Michael. All right, good. Daniel 1, verse 1. These freaking tabs keep popping up on my Bible. All right, it said, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and he besieged it. He conquered it. Everybody with me? We're going to go slow today. We're going to have to hear in the spirit today. Let's just dig. Let's dig and get what God's trying to show us. So King Nebuchadnezzar conquered, besieged Babylon. And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, along with some of the articles from the temple of God. And these he carried off to the temple of God in Babylon, temple of his God in Babylonia, and put the treasures in the house of his God. Everybody follow me so far? All right. So then the king ordered Ashpenaz, the chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility. From the royal family and the nobility. This was the best of the best. This was the top of the top. He wanted young men without any physical defect. We've heard that request before, correct? Without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning. We're going to pause at that comma, and I'm going to ask someone to Google the meaning of aptitude. Say it again. Intellectual ability. I like that. Anybody else? A natural ability to do something. Intellectual ability. We got that? So he wanted men showing a natural ability for every kind of learning, not just this type of learning or I only think this way, like every type of learning, well informed, quick to understand. You pick up on things really fast. I don't have to keep going over and over and over and over. Qualified to serve in the king's palace. He was to teach them the language and the literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned to them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table, and there they were to be trained for 3 years, and after that, they were to enter the king's service. Right? So amongst those that were chosen, they came from Judah. There were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And the chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name Belteshazzar. To Hananiah, Shadrach. To Mishael, Meshach. And to Azariah, Abednego. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. We're going to pause at another comma. So imagine, be real, imagine being captive or incarcerated. Are you offered fine food? Are you offered nice things? Think about people or your loved ones or people you may know or what you've seen on Google about the prison system in this land. They don't eat very well. Is that correct? It's okay to talk. Yeah. Yep. So you would think if someone that's incarcerated or held captive or held prison is offered fine dining or fine food and wine, no matter what are their morals or principles or foundation that they stand on in captivity, that sounds like a pretty tempting offer, correct? Now, if you got loved ones in the prison system, or they fight over way less than the king's meat and wine. I'm trying to point something out if we being real. Because we like our delicacies too. So everybody with me? But Daniel resolved not to define himself with the royal food and wine. Somebody take that same Google and look up the word resolved. With ED on it, resolved. Firmly determined to do something. I hope now we're just in verse 8. They're just now into captivity, and you have to understand, using the reference that I just used of someone being captive in this land, the resolve, the morals that you have to say, I will not defile myself Go ahead, Teach. You hear it? What you saying, Teach? So he being picky. He resolved. He had firmly determined. This is not an in the moment thing. This is who he was. The character that you got to have, the more high ground and the foundations of God that you have to stand on to be in this predicament, to stand on these principles. But he resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. Well, they're in captivity. Wine go for high dollar in captivity. It's higher than regular wine. Go ahead, Mama Sue. Absolutely. So, Mama Sue, what you saying is no matter what they were called, no matter what somebody call you, label you, name you, say about you, if you notice, as we continue to read, they will call him Belteshazzar, and he wouldn't say, "Man, my name Dan." What do you need? What do you need? What's up? Go ahead, Stead. I saw you. No, you are not off. This is you absolutely right. This was from the royal family and from the noble without physical defect. Had an aptitude, a natural ability for every kind of learning. This was the top of the top. These wasn't dummies. Right? So you're absolutely correct. So it's showing you where they come from, the mentality they had, but they weren't just, that's not his, wasn't this particular group's attitude amongst the noble, amongst the royal. So it's also showing you, Stedman, that there were people amongst the noble and the royal and the handsome and the qualified and the quick to understand that did partake, that did defile themselves, that did not have the resolve. What do you do when those around you, those amongst you, those with you don't have that resolve? Is it we don't have that resolve now? But Daniel resolved not to defile himself. And those with Daniel, right? But in that resolve, so in that firm determination of not to defile myself, he was wise. He had wisdom. So he had a conversation. He asked the chief official for permission. He didn't buck. He didn't yell. He didn't do all of this. He asked permission not to defile himself in this way. Teach said something, and I wrote it down. Teach, I don't know, see if you remember this. All we got to do is be obedient. All we have to do is stand firm in the things that he stand firm, tell us to stand firm in, and seek his character, seek his ways. God is going to do the hard part. The miracles and the moving and the dropping seeds in people's heart. Well, we can't do that. God does that. When we have the resolve, when we have the determination to firmly not to be moved in this wicked land, all this wickedness around us, and we move with wisdom, God can start to do what he did in verse 9. It said, now God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel. But the official told Daniel, I am afraid of my lord, the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you. But then Daniel said to the guard whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days. James had touched on this up last Sunday. This is a wise approach. This is wisdom. This is not just in the moment, turn the switch, and this is how I operate now. Did anybody catch that this is how they operated in Judah when things were good? So he agreed. So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So it was 4. They never gave us a total number, but out of this group, it was 4 who didn't. Everyone else ate the royal food. See that small percentage? It's always that small percentage. What Mama Sue, what you used to tell the kids back in the day? You jumped off a bridge. If your friend jumped off a bridge, would you do it too? Or what would be the few? So at the beginning, I asked y'all to look up 2 words. It was aptitude and resolve. That's correct. Aptitude was a natural ability to do something, intellectual ability to do something. Is that correct? And resolve was finally a firmly determination to do something. Correct? Teach, read 17. When do we think this natural aptitude or natural resolve happened? Do you think it happened right here in this moment? So, write aptitude down, write resolve down, and write Daniel 1:17 down, because that's where we are right now. It's going to be important at the end of the study. To these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. So God gives gifts. Way early, too. We've been talking about gifts, right? Teach. These gifts that we've been learning from one another are these gifts that we just acquired. So let's keep going. We are 18. Says at the end of the time set by the king to bring them into his service, how long was it? What was the time that he set? 3 years, right? So 3 years have passed, right? The chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and he found none more equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And so they entered the king's service, and in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned, he found them 10 times better than all of the magicians and enchanters in his whole kingdom. And Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. Right? So now they're in the king's service. Nobody found wiser than them. The king just had this experience with them personally. Had conversation, went and talked with them, seen how wise they were. So in the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his mind was troubled. He could not sleep. So the king summoned magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed. When they came to him and stood before them, he said to them, I have had a dream that troubles me, and I want to know what it means. The astrologers answered the king and said, may the king live forever. Oh, long live the king. Tell your servants the dream, and we will interpret it. And the king replied to this, I have firmly decided, if you do not tell me what my dream was and interpret it, I will have you cut into pieces and your houses turned into piles of rubble. But if you tell me the dream and explain it, you will receive from me gifts and rewards of great honor. So tell me the dream and interpret it for me. Once more, they replied, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will interpret it. The king answered, I am certain that you are trying to gain time because you realize this is what I have firmly decided. This is what I've resolved. I resolved to do this. If you do not tell me the dream, there is only one penalty for you. You have conspired to tell me misleading and wicked things, hoping the situation will change. So then tell me the dream, and I know that you can interpret it for me. This is a response because this is what's been going on. This is what enchanters and magicians and these wise people do. They tell you the things that your itching ears want to hear. Gotta be careful. But the astrologers answered the king, there is no one on earth who can do as the king's asked. No king, however great and mighty, has ever asked anything of a magician or enchanter or astrologer. What the king asks is too difficult, and no one can reveal it to the king except the gods, and they do not live among humans. But this made the king so angry and furious that he ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon. So a decree was issued to put the wise men to death, and men were sent to look for Daniel and his friends to put them to death. You see how you can be over here operating and doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you can get sucked into some foolishness over here that you ain't got nothing to do with. What you gonna revert to though? What's gonna be your default mode? Never know when your situation can change, your circumstances can change, your atmosphere can change, your environment can change. But it's one thing that can remain the same. Your resolve, your determination, your character, your training. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, had gone to put to death the wise men of Babylon, Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact. With wisdom and tact. He asked the king's officer, why did the king issue such a hard decree? And Arioch then explained the matter to Daniel, and at this Daniel went to the king and asked for time so he might interpret the dream for him. Then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his brothers, and he urged them to plead mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends may not be executed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. And during the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision, and then Daniel praised the God of heaven and said, "Praise be to the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. He changes times and seasons. He deposes kings and raises up others." Go ahead, Mama Sue. That's right. He went to default mode. He went back to what he knew. Go ahead, teach. Go ahead, teach. Called a huddle. He see what the defense is doing. He made an adjustment. Right? He moved with tact, with wisdom. Go ahead, teach. Hmm. It's a deadly situation. And then listen to this. Listen to the heart of this. What we always talk about, be strong and courageous. We talk about the heart, the character, timing, right? Listen to the heart and the character that he's representing. Then Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to execute the wise men of Babylon, and said to him, "Do not execute the wise men of Babylon." Hey, king, don't execute the believers. Just execute the wise men, the magicians. Don't execute the believers. God wishing no one perishes. You hear this? You hear the heart? He's interceding for all the wise men, not just the ones who defiled themselves with the royal food and the wine. Hey, Lord, hey, King, don't execute me and my partners. That ain't what he said. Do not execute the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king, and I will interpret to his dream for him. Y'all hear that? So Arioch took Daniel to the king, and at once took him to the king at once, and said, "I have found a man among the exiles from Judah who can tell the king what his dream means." Then the king asked Daniel, "Are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream and interpret it?" Here come more wisdom, more tact, more truth. No wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain the king the mystery he has asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has shown Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the days to come. Your dream and the visions that pass through your mind as you were lying in the bed are these. And he started to interpret the dreams for him. Right? And you can read this. He starts to give him dreams of this, interpretation of this stream, that of this big old statue, that the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had. And it was breaking down his kingdom and all of the kingdoms that was coming after that. So continue to read Daniel. We won't get into for the sake of time, right? But if we're gonna jump down, and it says, let me see here. We're gonna jump down to 45. I'm sorry, 46. So after he interpreted the dream, says King Nebuchadnezzar fell prostrate before Daniel and paid him honor and ordered that an offering and incense be presented to him. Then King said to Daniel, "Surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this mystery." Then the king placed Daniel in a high position and lavished many gifts on him, and he made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon and placed him in charge of all its wise men. Moreover, at Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego administrators over the province of Babylon, while Daniel himself remained at the royal court. So their circumstances and their environment has changed. Not only changed, it has improved. Is that correct? Boy, they moving on up to the east side. Go ahead, Teach. He was there for a long time. That's a feat in itself. Go ahead, Sister Autumn. And that's why God says, I will give you peace that not the peace that the world gives, but the pieces that surpasses understanding. Because what we're learning in this story, you're right, sis, what we're learning in this story is through the peaks and valleys of Daniel's life, he had that same peace, whether he was in a royal position or he was in captivity. And we're going to keep reading. We're going to see that same peace, that same encouragement, that same strength, that same resolve was there no matter his environment, no matter his situation. And that's what God is showing us. We have to be in season, out of season, no matter our circumstances, because the bigger picture is for God's glory. It's not about us at our personal individual lives. Go ahead, Stead. I saw you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But no, she's right. You're at like when, but she's right. Absolutely. Like, but it's when we give God our all, and God will give us that peace that you can't pay for it. And then when we're in these high places, or when we're in places of prominence, or wherever God has us in these seasons where He has us, that character and those morals and that foundation and that resolve that we have is there all the time, no matter your environment. Now you don't, like she said, God is first and all time. You don't become arrogant. You don't what you say, bro? Yeah, you won't switch up. That's right. You don't become arrogant. You don't become proud. You don't think like you've gotten all of these things on your own. And you'll see as we continue to read and where that'll get you. Let's keep going. So we're in chapter 3. So King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 60 cubits high and 60 cubits wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. He then summoned the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all of the other provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the officials assembled for the dedication of the image of King Nebuchadnezzar that he had set up, and they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, nations and peoples of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sounds of the horn, flute, zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipe, and all kinds of music, You must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, the zither, the lyre, the harp, and all kinds of the music, all the nations and people, every language, fell down and worshiped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So all of these people reverted to their training. And that training is, if we're not careful, those who save their life will surely lose it. That training was whatever it takes, survival mode. I don't stand on nothing. I stand on me, self-preservation. Go ahead, Teach. Mm. It's 60 and 60 wide. And then at this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, may the king live forever. You know they scheme. You know they up to something when they come like that. May the king live forever. Your majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn and the flute and the zither and the lyre, the harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold. And that whoever does not fall down and worship be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews, listen to this language, but there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up. See, you know, you ever been with your husband or wife or your significant other and your child being bad? See, that's your child. See your kid, or they start to display a characteristic you not favorable. I say that's your side of it. That's your mama's side. You start to separate yourself. But they're trying to get and they're trying to poke. See them dudes that you put in place? They pay no attention to you. So he gets furious. He gets mad. They done push them emotional buttons with them words. See what words can do? Words can rile you up. So these men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar said to them, is this true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I set up? Now, when you hear the sound of the horn and flute and all the kinds of the music, you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made. Very good. But if you don't worship, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand. Listen to this language, because he knows what God they serve. He's already had an experience with them. But you know that short memory, that arrogance, then what God will be able to rescue out of my hand. And we were talking about this on our prayer call with the men the other day, Teach and Baba GD and all of us was on, about when you really got that strength and that encouragement and that boldness from the Lord, you move different. Remember we were talking about teachers like you coming with your cousins. When James said you go to the basketball court with 100 now, you talking, you smacking, you being extra. When you have the Lord on your side and that faith is strong and you know he with you and wherever you go, even your language is different. Y'all remember how David was talking to the giant? Around all of these people that was fearful, around all of these military warriors that was scared of him. And the giant was doing all of this talking and boasting. And David came out, man, who is this uncircumcised? Who is this fool? the boldness, the encouragement, the business that he stood on. Because we have that faith and we have that assurance where that faith is so strong, we know God will be with us wherever we go. So listen to this. It says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. What's understood don't need to be explained. We're not defending ourselves. Guilty. We did it. I don't need no lawyer. I did it. And if we are thrown into the blazing fire, then the God we serve is able to deliver us from it. And he would deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, with all due respect, that we will not serve your gods. We're not going to worship the image. We're going to stand on it. Our default mode is God or nothing. If I got to lay down my life, here you go. Go ahead, teach. Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right, bro. Mm-hmm. No, you good, bro. Mm-hmm. It's such a wicked thing. And when people get in positions of power like this, and you've seen it like throughout history, the empires that have tried to do the conquering, and those, those conquer the whole world mentality, like that arrogance and that proudness that builds up, and the mentality and the coldness of your heart that turns into. And even it's on such a smaller scale, when we become that type of ruler of our households or our communities or where we at, we get those same attributes, those same characteristics if we're not careful. And that's what we're really trying to point out. Like, if you see, like, when Daniel was in captivity, he had the same type of moral high ground. When he was in royal position, he had the same moral high ground. Same thing with his three brothers here. Like, they didn't, like, no, we look here. If you remember, they were officials over the province. He had put the Babylonian statue outside the province. They walked past this. They saw this being built. They walked past this every day. This is what we talk about, like, when we read these verses or we read the story, like, we read these sentences. These are years of time from, verse 1 to verse 20. And it might take us 5 or 10 minutes to read it, but we got to really, like, read what God is trying to show us. How long it took for this statue to be built? How long this from the time of captivity to this point? They're in royal positions now. They could have let their guard down. I'm going to tell you something about the mountaintop. If you ever watched any documentaries or heard any information of people who climb Mount Everest, that's a lot of deaths on that mountain. The most deaths happen on the way back down. The energy and the thought process and the detail that it takes to get up there and the adulation, because not everyone makes it to the top. Finally making it to the top, you're not as detailed and energetic going down. So now you start taking shortcuts. You start doing things you wouldn't have done on the way up. God wants us to be that same way in that mountaintop that we were in the. Think about how humble and how crying out and how dependent on the Lord you are when we ain't working and we don't know when we in these positions and we just balled up like a baby trying to figure it out. You calling on God every day on their way up to the mountaintop. And then as soon as we get up there and we start to be on our way down, you start doing things that you weren't going to do on the way up. And it can be deadly. And you'll never make it back down. So let's keep going. Said Nebuchadnezzar was furious with them, and his attitude towards them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent, and the furnace was so hot that the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and these men firmly tied fell into the furnace. So we had 3 of the soldiers. Or not 3 of his soldiers, some of his strongest soldiers tied up these 3 brothers. The furnace was so hot that it took out the strong soldiers. Go ahead, Sister Autumn. Amen. Now watch this. So they threw him so his soldiers have passed. King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his fire. Wasn't it 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire? And they replied, yes, your majesty. He said, look, I see 4 men walking around the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods. Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. Where did he walk to, teach? Why didn't he die? Like God's presence was there so strong. If earlier in the verse, he made the furnace 7 times hotter, the soldiers immediately perished when they went to go throw them in there. His presence was with them. His presence is with us everywhere we go. But it's the assurance of, if you take me out of this or you don't, you with me. We just want you, but before we get thrown in this fire, we just want you to know we ain't rocking with you. And let it be what it's going to be. We ain't defending ourselves. Y'all hear the boldness? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they came out of the fire. The satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their hair singed. Their robes were not scorched. There was no smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's demands and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation, language, or say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, or Abednego be cut into pieces, and their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to the province of Babylon. Why didn't he just destroy the statue? But you see where your training can get you, where your default mode can get you. What are we going to fall on in times of adversity? What are we going to fall on in times of persecution? Maybe even death. And if you, I advise you to keep reading the story. You keep reading the story about Nebuchadnezzar. He continues on his arrogant path. He continues on his journey of, I did it, I did it, I did it, I got, look what I got. Let's just read that real quick. He had been given another dream that Daniel had to interpret it. Please go read it. But then the dream was, let me go back. I think it's in 30. I'm sorry. No, it's in 20. I'll read it in 24. You can go back and read the initial dream, but this is the interpretation. Your Majesty, and this is the decree that the Most High has issued against the my Lord the King. You will be driven away from people and will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like the ox and be drenched with the dew of the heaven. 7 times will pass by you until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth and gives them to anyone he wishes. The command to leave the stump of the tree with its roots mean that your kingdom, hold on a second, y'all. Mean that your kingdom will be restored to you when you acknowledge that heaven rules. Therefore, your Majesty, be pleased to accept my advice, renounce your sins by doing what is right, and your wickedness by being kind to the oppressed, that it may be that then your prosperity will continue. His dream is fulfilled 12 months later. As the king was walking on the roof of the royal palace, he said, "Is this not the great Babylon I have built as the royal residence, but by my mighty power for the glory of my majesty?" And as soon as he said it out of his lips, it came to pass. We have to be careful being proud. We got to be careful having this mindset of everything that we did. Everything belongs to the Lord. The glory, the praise, everything. And when we have that mindset, when we have that, that's our morals, that's our foundation. That's what we will fall back on. We won't fall back on self-preservation. We can take all of this information that we know and apply it, because we can have a whole bunch of information. We can have all of this information that we just read, all of this information, not just today, that we've been getting over this journey, and use it foolishly. Go ahead, Stedman. No, man, I like that. And not growing weary in our journey. Going after thing after thing after thing after thing after thing, and he's staying on it. And there's a reason. Go ahead, bro. No, that's beautiful, bro. You good. Let's not move foolishly with the information that we have. Ain't that dangerous? Ain't that scary? All right, we're gonna close here in a minute. We're in chapter 5. It says King Belshazzar, this is the son of Nebuchadnezzar, gave a great banquet. This is the son of Nebuchadnezzar. So he's king now. What are you before you become king? So he's king now. At once he was a prince. Let's not move foolish with the information. Let's not be foolish with our information. Let's be wise. So he gave a great banquet for 1,000 of his nobles and drank wine with them. While Belshazzar was drinking his wine, he gave orders to bring in the. Hold on. Before I read that, somebody pull up Daniel 1:1. Go ahead. No, start at verse 1. Daniel 1:1. Same ones, right? Same ones, right? So while he was drinking, while they're in there partying, drinking wine, he had a thought come across. He gave orders, bring in the gold and the silver goblets that his father had taken from the temple in Jerusalem. So the king and his nobles and his wives and concubines might drink from them. So they brought in the gold goblets, and they had been taken from the temple of God in Jerusalem. And the king and his nobles and his wives and his concubines drank from them. As they drank the wine, they praised the gods of gold and silver and bronze and iron and wood and stone. Here is a king who was once prince, who was there during his father's reign, from the time of acquiring these goblets, knowing where they came from, knowing his father's journey. So, hmm, that's right, Teach. It's intellectually honest and wise to even just assume, as a father, as a king, and a son who was a prince at one point who became king, that they had all kind of conversations. That's how the kingdom works. To prepare my firstborn, or who I assigned the heir, the prince, who's going to one day become king. I have to prepare him to become king. That's a safe assumption. Let's keep reading. Suddenly, the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall near the lampstand in the royal palace. The king watched the hand as it wrote. His face turned pale, and he was so frightened that his legs became weak and his knees were knocking. The king summoned the enchanters and astrologers and diviners. Then he said to the wise men of Babylon, whoever reads, go ahead. Whoever reads this writing and tells me what it means. I'm sorry, go ahead. Who that is? Oh, I got it. Then he said to the wise man, whoever reads this writing and tells me what it means will be clothed in purple and have a gold chain placed around their neck, and he will be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom. Then all the king's wise men came in, but they could not read the writing or tell the king what it meant. So King Belshazzar came even more terrified, and his face grew even more pale. His nobles were baffled. The queen, hearing the voices of the king and his nobles, came into the banquet hall. May the king live forever, she said. Don't be alarmed. Don't look so pale. There is a man in your kingdom who has the spirit of the holy gods in him. Just foolish. In the time of your father, he was found to have insight and intelligence and wisdom. Oh my gosh. Can y'all hear this? Like, you remembered how wise he was. Oh my goodness, of the gods. And your father, the king Nebuchadnezzar, appointed him chief of the magicians, enchanters, astrologers, and diviners. He did this because Daniel, who the king called Belteshazzar, was found to have a keen mind of knowledge and understanding, and also the ability to interpret dreams, explain riddles, and solve difficult problems. Call for Daniel, and he will tell you what the writing means. I'm going to tell you something else that I caught, and I hope that y'all caught it, is standing on his morals and standing on his principles and standing on the character of God. The name that they gave him started to go away, and they started to refer to him as Daniel. Hmm. Yep. Well, yeah, it was like Stedman said, it was the name of their god, of one of their Babylonian gods. Uh, let's keep reading and see if he knew. So Daniel was brought before the king, and the king said to him, "Are you Daniel, one of the exiles my father the king brought from Judah? I have heard that the spirit of the God is in you, and that you have insight, intelligence, and outstanding wisdom." Before we continue reading, don't get caught up in certain things just because they sound like compliments. Because what he just said here is a lie. Everybody with me? I have heard that the spirit of the gods is in you, and that you have insight and intelligence and outstanding wisdom. The wise men and enchanters were brought before me to read this writing and tell me what it means, but they cannot explain it. Now I have heard that you're able to give interpretations and to solve difficult problems. If you can read this writing and tell me what it means, you will be clothed in purple and have a gold chain placed around your neck, and you will be placed the highest ruler in the kingdom. A lot of people like flashy things and money and positions and jewelry. That's what gets their attention. And the enemy knows this. And it's so many of our brothers and sisters that has fall by the wayside because of things that they've been offered, as opposed to their morals and their training and the default that God wants us to rely on. But when your default mode is God, when your fallback is God, when your off-season training is God, it sounds like this. Daniel answered to the king, "You may keep your gifts for yourself and give your rewards to someone else, But nevertheless, I will read the writing for the king and tell him what it means. Your majesty, the most high God gave your father Nebuchadnezzar sovereignty and greatness and glory and splendor. Let's read that again. Listen to his words, because I made a statement earlier, just a second ago, about the untrue compliment. Your majesty, the most high God gave your father Nebuchadnezzar sovereignty and greatness and glory and splendor. Because of the high position he gave him, all of the nations and peoples of every language dreaded and feared him. Those the king wanted to put to death, he put to death. Those he wanted to spare, he spared. Those he wanted to promote, he promoted. And those he wanted to humble, he humbled. But when his heart became arrogant and hardened with pride, he was deposed from his royal throne and stripped from his glory. He was driven away from people and given the mind of an animal. He lived with the wild donkeys and ate grass like the ox, and his body was drenched with the dew of heaven, until he acknowledged the Most High God is sovereign over all kingdoms and earth and sets over them any one he wishes. Read 22, teach. Very slowly, very loudly. So you knew everything. You even coming to me saying, "Yo, I heard you got the spirit of the God." You knew from what your daddy showed you up until his death. That's why you're the king. So you took all of this information that you had access to, all of this wisdom, all of these things that you saw as a prince, and you threw it away. So you knew all of this. So instead of application, you had set up yourself against the Lord of heaven. You had the goblets from his temple brought to you, and you and your nobles, your wives, and your concubines drank from them. Hold on, mind you, Daniel was sent for to make this interpretation, so he wasn't at the event. I just want to throw that out there, right? You did all of these things, but you did not honor the God who holds his hand, your life, and all of your ways. Therefore, he sent the hand that wrote this encryption. And this is the encryption that was written. Mene, tekel, parson. Here's what these words mean. Mene, God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. And Perez, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then at Belshazzar's command, Daniel was clothed in purple, and the gold chains were placed around his neck, and he was proclaimed the third highest ruler in the kingdom. And that very night, the king was slain, and Darius the Mede took over the kingdom at the age of 62. What's going to be our default, brothers and sisters? In any situation that we may be in, we'll find ourselves in. What's our default mode? If you keep reading, and for the sake of time, we're gonna close out. You keep reading in Daniel, the next adversity felt was under the hand of the next king. Right? Let's just read this real quick, just to bring it on. Go to chapter 6. If you got to go, I understand. Said it pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom, with 3 administrators over them, one of whom was Daniel. The satraps were made accountable to them, right? So the satraps were made accountable to the administrators, the 3. Now Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators that the satraps, by his exceptional qualities, that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. He was honorable. He was just. He had the heart of God. He was uncorruptible. He was a light. He was a true man of God. And at this, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. They could not do so because his default mode was what, family? We will we will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God. We will never do it. Go ahead, Teach. So when your default mode is God and you what you've been working on in the off season, the training is going to show. So ain't that right? So Bishop and Stedman. So if a receiver and he been putting all his work in all off season and getting his time up and running with the parachute and just getting his time up and doing his technique and just getting technically sound for the season, and he's going against a cornerback who hasn't. Now he grabbing you, he pulling on you, he doing all it because he can't get you on fundamentals. He can't get you because your default in your training is what you've been building on all off season. He gonna fall back to what he know, which is lazy defense, grabbing, touching. Go ahead, bro. Go ahead. No, don't you shut up. Go ahead. That's right, bro. So teach. Before we close out, read Daniel 1:17. And we all agree that that's not nothing that happened in the, what'd you say, teach? That's right, bro. There you go. Go ahead, bro. Mm-hmm. No, that's beautiful, bro. You remember when you made me think about. Remember when Jesus said, like, man, go. Like I'm gonna give you what to say. Like I'm gonna give you the wise words. Your enemy ain't gonna have no rebuttal to it. With this wisdom, and you go do and say what I give you, and you do what I tell you to do. Their responses will not match up to the wisdom that I'm gonna give you. And so when we make that our default mode, no matter what position, like Teach said, no matter where he was at under what rulership, what culture change, what environment, circumstances change, that wisdom that surpasses all understanding, that peace that he had, no enchanter, no wise man, no magician, no astrologer, no one could stand beside him and be as wise as him on any matter, on any language, on any subject. So we're going to close out, but before we do, in Daniel 10 and 12, Daniel has this vision and he's visited by Gabriel. But I want to point something out. Gabriel said, then he continues, said, do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day, y'all remember what Teach read. So Teach, read that one more time before I read this. Mm-hmm. Correct. And so you remember go to chapter verse 1. I think it was 1 or 2, Teach. Remember when he said Nebuchadnezzar had a request. I want men that has an aptitude of learning, a natural ability of learning, right? So this is a natural ability that God gave him and his brothers. Is that correct? Hear this, brothers and sisters, because we can do the same thing. Listen, it says, do not be afraid, Daniel, since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. When we set our mind that we want understanding, godly wisdom, his heart, his character, that's our default mode. That's what we'll fall back to. When we get into these moments, we'll fall back to our training. You're going to fall back to your training, going to fall back to your default mode, whatever that is. And if it's a lack of training, you're going to fall back to a lack of training. If it's dependence on the system, we're going to fall back to the dependence on the system. If your default mode is letting the preacher tell you something, or letting the politicians tell you something, or let somebody, the internet telling you something, that's going to be your default mode. But if default mode is the Holy Spirit, if the default mode is God 24/7, no matter my circumstances, no matter my position, no matter where I'm at, whether I'm high, low, rich, poor, this is my default mode. Because Daniel searched the scriptures. He diligently sought him. He understood that the captivity of Jerusalem was going to last 70 years. He knew there was a time frame. He knew there was a window that he had to get through. You see how that's more encouraging now? Can you understand how a brother that's incarcerated is more encouraged because he's going home at a date as opposed to someone who got a life sentence? Our beautiful mother Teresa said something that she's been saying a lot of beautiful things that's been sticking with us, but she said something about her approach. And Teach, we've been saying it too, is like, I'm approaching today. I got the day today, and then the day he heals me. You ever heard people that go to prison say that? No matter what time they got, I got 2 days. The day I get in and the day I go out. Man, we got 2 days in this journey. It's the day that you made the commitment into the day that God calls us home. 2 days. Endure the 2 days. God has given us a window. He's given us a period of time. Endure to the end. Fall back on your training, but you better get in that gym. Go ahead, Ace. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Amen, bro. Appreciate it. Hey, let's rethink our training so we can be sure of what our default mode will be. And I pray for all of us, for all of our sake, all of our brothers and sisters, me and everybody, that our default mode becomes Him, that we stay in Him, we remain in Him, because away from Him we can do nothing. So Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, I'm gonna shut it down. Thanks for joining us today. See you next week for another Bible study. So go spend some time with God, get some time in that Word, and get some rest. Until then, 4719.
There was a time when you see life had no purpose for me. Then along came sweet Jesus. He set my soul free, yes he did. He gave me a reason to live. All that I needed, the man was willing to give. He sheltered me with his love from above. Yes, he did.
Yeah. Who I was before and really who I gotta be. I can say I'm done with this, live my life like I'm free. God forgives, but don't take advantage, don't think he's sweet. This rap ain't nothing to play with, my boy. Go home and breathe. Don't let your cup fill up the